Hi, friends. Thanks for taking the time to join me today. I want this, as ever, when I'm doing these sort of like cozy chats, to be low key. I have my tea right here. I hope y'all have yours too. Although, if you're like me and you're in the Northern Hemisphere, maybe it's kind of warm for tea wherever you are. If we don't know one another, I'm Rachel. I'm the founder of Seeds. Seeds, if unfamiliar, is an ecosystem that empowers people to build wealth through helping others, and its design is like a direct um, it attempts to address the dysfunction in the legacy economic system. And today, the event that made me think today was a timely discussion, a timely time to schedule a discussion, was ostensibly because the Ether ETF, exchange traded fund, launched today. And if you're familiar with me and this channel at all, you probably know that I also talk about cryptocurrency trading and have talked about that in the past, and even teach a course on cryptocurrency trading. It's called How to Build Abundance in Cryptocurrency. But the course existed and continues to exist to sustain Seeds so that 100% of the gifts that come through our ecosystem can go to people in need. So, I want to talk about the Ether ETF, and in a larger sense, I want to talk about what's going on in the world because I think we need to have that conversation. I'm not seeing it being had sort of, certainly not within the money system or amongst people that are talking about events that are happening within the money system. And so I want to step up and be more of that person. So, to start, I guess I just want to say maybe you're feeling better if you're like me, because as I'm recording this, it's a couple days after Biden announced that he was stepping down. So that started to give me more hope. Um, and I know I'm not alone in that. But I was frustrated for some time. I sent an email to our community, the Seeds community, earlier this morning to try and articulate this thing that I feel like I just very recently realized, which was that if this is boring or anything, please stop me and let me know. Feel free to say whatever in the chat and we can just hang out and have a discourse. But I found that it's been challenging for Seeds the last few years because back in the day, people didn't even know what cryptocurrency was, right? For years. I remember in 2013 telling everyone I knew about Bitcoin because after experiencing all of this discrimination when I worked as a professional stock trader and kind of seeing how dysfunctional that system actually is and how misogynistic it is and racist, it's just discriminatory as hell. Coming out of that, I was excited to discover Bitcoin because I saw that the technology created this opportunity for us to rebuild potentially kinder economic systems, which is what Seeds strives to be. And I think what Seeds already is, I think it already has shown itself to be that. But back in the day, in 2013, it was a very different climate. When I was telling all my friends from college, my family, anyone who would listen, hey, I think you should pay attention to Bitcoin. I just started buying it at $90 a coin, whatever. I couldn't get anyone to listen to me, with a couple of exceptions. And then it went up a lot. And then there have been cycles throughout the years. This is the fourth market cycle that I've personally been a part of, which we're going through right now. And what invariably has happened is that as the prices in the cryptocurrency world have gone up a lot, more people in the mainstream will be like, oh, I should probably pay attention to that. I know that my friend or my sister or whomever was talking about it. So they will pay attention, but then there would be bad actors in the space. And this goes back to 2014. In 2014, it was the founder of Mt. Gox who fucked stuff up. And those bad actors would then leave a bad taste in the mouths of people who were maybe new to the sector. And it's gotten bigger with every cycle because more people in the mainstream know about it. And that's been really kind of interesting to observe from a sociological standpoint, and at times very frustrating from the standpoint of somebody who's using the technology to actually try to help people in need, which isn't really happening elsewhere in the space, to my knowledge. So where we're at right now, I think is super fascinating, but also super scary in a sense. I mean, I was really worried about it until I had this recent epiphany because like now it's becoming politicized heading into the American presidential election, and straight up idiots like the Winklevoss twins. I actually made a video about this recently if you want to check it out, just about how stupid they are. They're the co-founders of a cryptocurrency exchange called Gemini. I'll just show it to you in case you're unfamiliar. I have it open already. And okay, so they founded this exchange which isn't even loading the graph right now. It could be because my Chrome like didn't update correctly apparently, but this is their thing. So they're like finance bros. If you've ever seen The Social Network, they're sort of most famous because they sued Mark Zuckerberg for allegedly stealing their idea. And yeah, if you've seen the news recently, let's actually look them up. They're supporting Trump. They each gave $1 million in Bitcoin to Trump. Now they're making donations to whatever candidate is taking on Elizabeth Warren. And it's just like their donation even exceeded the limit, so some of it had to be returned. Um, they're actively politicizing cryptocurrency as a whole, and they're really acting like there's some kind of victims in this instance, and it really should be made fun of because it's just like ridiculous, and they're among the most privileged people that have ever walked the earth in recorded history. This is them. And the thing that like astonished me, maybe that's too strong of a word, but what surprised me was in looking at this more closely. I always assumed that they were at least like smart, but in like reading their reasoning for doing this, like it's just another example of somebody, especially like this happens more for white men, who is just so privileged that they got access to a place like Harvard. They've had access to lots of money, and they don't really seem to have, there's nothing extraordinary or it's particularly outstanding about them. I don't actually think they're smart people, and I like want to kind of make fun of that because they're so privileged. Anyway, they've been at the forefront of this scary alignment within the cryptocurrency sector with Trump. And since then we've seen, I mean, Peter Thiel was aligned with this, I mean, since what, 2016? He was pro Trump. He's another venture capitalist who made a lot of money and is a pretty toxic person. He's one of the co-founders of PayPal, and like literally wrote an essay about how date rape wasn't a thing, like it didn't exist as a concept, and like women shouldn't have gotten the right to vote. Like this is the dude. Um, but then the other thing that seems to be happening, and looking into this more, I think it has a lot to do with JD Vance, Trump's recent selection for VP candidate, because he was a venture capitalist. And yeah, I mean, I don't know how much you want to listen to me rant today. And that's not really what this is intended to be, but like, I didn't know much about JD Vance. I had heard of Hillbilly Elegy, the film, and maybe I had known that it was based on a book. I didn't watch the film because it, like, I'm interested in film, but I usually read reviews and whatever written by people that whose opinions I respect before I dive into a new film. And it just didn't seem like it was going to be a good movie, whatever, so I didn't see it. But yeah, just looking more into JD Vance recently, I realized like, oh, first of all, he's born the same year I was, so that's like a new thing for me to be like the same age as a VP candidate. Whatever, I guess that just happens as you get older. But the other thing is like he's from Ohio, from a small town in Ohio, like I was, in Appalachia, and like I could see Appalachia from the window of my parents' house. It was like in the neighboring county. Um, anyway, I started reading his book, is what I'm trying to say, and just started to get angry. And it made me think that I should try to write a book to counter a lot of the conclusions that it seems like he made, because it's like he's describing like this is why Trump happened. Like he's making this assertion that like this is why poor white people in Appalachia and places like Ohio have come out for Trump, and why we have all of this um, discord in the United States. And I don't agree with his assessment, like in on almost all counts. So I feel like I've been trying to like, it seems like there is some way that I should try and share those thoughts. it's felt for a while like I was born in the place that I was born because there's some insight about poor white people and what's going on in those worlds in the United States that I was meant to share from a feminine perspective. And I think I'm supposed to try to do that. Anyway, he later became a venture capitalist, as I mentioned. And so it really looks like his connection to the world of venture capital is what's resulted in like Elon Musk now giving $45 million a month to Trump, and the founders of A16Z, which is like the fanciest venture capital firm, which invests in most perceived to be good quality cryptocurrency projects that are raising funds from VC. It looks like JD Vance is that connection. So it's some scary shit. And yeah, I was really worried. And in the past few years, as more of this toxic energy in the world of cryptocurrency has manifested itself, it seemed really difficult to figure out a way to separate seeds from all of that noise. I didn't know how to do it. I knew that it wasn't my responsibility to defend cryptocurrency as a sector. I didn't have interest in doing that. And cryptocurrency as a sector has also been pretty shitty to me over the years because it's such a misogynistic world. And it really doesn't like it whenever you call it out for that. But I got caught in this space while speaking about seeds where it was like, if I talked about, and let me stress, like this changed so quickly. Like things in that sector have moved so fast over the years that it's just changed really quickly. Like not so long ago, like 3 years ago, so recent, really. 3 years ago, I was able to use like TikTok was our main traction channel to share about seeds. And I would talk about seeds and cryptocurrency on TikTok. And I would like the way I communicated things at that time was I would talk about how like crypto bros, quote unquote, people with a lot of toxic energy in the crypto space had been the ones who had previously gotten rich. And I wanted to share my knowledge of the space so that like nice people trying to do things to improve this world could be the ones who were able to find wealth through the world of cryptocurrency instead. Because like for real, y'all, at this time in history, there is no other sector that offers more opportunity for people to build wealth, sometimes very quickly and in orders of magnitude. Like it can truly be crazy. You know, like I was talking about, like I was personally buying Bitcoin at $90 a coin 11 years ago. And since then, it's hit highs of nearly $74,000 a coin. And it's the oldest cryptocurrency. So there is just this, there's a huge opportunity there within the sector that has largely benefited people who are not trying to make the world a better place, is what I'm trying to say. So back in like 2021, I was able to go to TikTok and like cryptocurrency was less familiar to people in the mainstream. And I could just be like, hey, it looks like the market is going up as a whole. I want good people to benefit from this. And I would talk about that in such a way with the goal of raising awareness about seeds because people don't know about seeds. It's still like a little known project. And that's mostly a function of, I mean, it's not entirely this. There are other, it's not like I've been perfect as a founder or something. I've certainly made many mistakes. But I would say the biggest part of the reason Seeds isn't well known as a project is because we've been underfunded because the misogyny in finance extends to venture capital. I think that's why, like, knowing that JD Vance used to be a venture capitalist is that was the catalyst that got me really fired up because that dude had no qualifications to get that job that I could see. He was just like a lawyer who went to Yale Law, and then they just hired him as a venture capitalist. And those are the people that like 98.1% of venture capital goes to men, male founded tech organizations. It's I can't think of a more like nakedly discriminatory sector that exists. Like other sectors are at least regulated so that they can't blatantly be misogynistic and racist, and venture capital isn't. And then they're hiring people like JD Vance with no qualifications to make those decisions that result in that discrimination. And that made things a lot harder for Seeds because we had a tiny fraction of the resourcing that other projects had. But over time, I've come to realize like this is just, I think it just had to go this way. That meant that through Seeds, I ended up realizing like, okay, at a certain point in like 2019, cryptocurrency was well enough known that I understood that, like, okay, we could offer a course where I share the knowledge that I've garnered as a pro stock trader who started buying cryptocurrency in 2013. And I could teach people how to trade it. And we could offer seeds when people signed up for the course, which would make the course effectively free. And that could be a way to help people learn about seeds and also support the project, so that the fact that this like insane discrimination in the money sector that we were suffering from, like we could find a way to get around that and keep the project going and keep the project growing over time. And that worked quite well in 2021, but it was like um it wasn't squarely benefiting seeds, because sometimes I would get people coming in who, didn't give a fuck about seeds, who just were on TikTok and heard people hyping Dogecoin or something, and like saw that Elon Musk had tweeted about Doge or whatever, and they felt like they needed to learn about it, and then they saw that I was on TikTok. So, and that was like in the peak of the hype cycle, like mid 2021. And it was just like not quite, it wasn't the energy that was going to sustain seeds, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Excuse me. It helped a lot and it got us to a certain point. So that was great. But then, like, as things started coming down because of various like frauds in the cryptocurrency sector, which has happened every market cycle, there have been these bad actors. They're almost always men every market cycle. At each market cycle, they get more press and more people in the mainstream hear about them. So it's been, the biggest during this market cycle. That culminated then, well, FTX was the big news story because he was in the press, Sam Bankman-Fried, the founder, at all times, it seemed like, and he went to jail. And now we have what's going on today, where crypto is becoming synonymous with like the worst Trumpian energy imaginable. And I actually think that it's like smarter people in the world of tech, these venture capitalists, like the founders of A16Z and Peter Thiel, are actually manipulating Trump to their own ends. I think they wanted to get JD Vance in there. He's younger, he's quote unquote smarter. It just, yeah, I think there's some manipulation of Trump's ego and narcissism happening from these tech people who are, I mean, some of them are smart and a lot of them aren't smart. I want to stress, like, I don't think Elon Musk is, people act like that dude is a genius. And it's just like, I haven't seen any sign of that. You know what I'm saying? So, in terms of how this related to what's going on in my recent realization about transcending the old system and how to speak about seeds, so I was really distressed because it was just like the only narrative we were seeing about the sector of cryptocurrency was getting worse and more toxic. And it didn't seem like there was anything I could do about it. And it was really, I mean, if you're a woman trying to talk about shit online, you know that you get a lot of hate anyway. Everybody gets hate online if they're trying to say stuff. It's worse if misogyny is involved, and it's going to be even worse if racism is involved. And I was getting hit on both sides because when I would try to talk about seeds, I would get the people that hate cryptocurrency, who would probably, many of whom would actually really like seeds and really resonate with its mission to transcend the old system. They would just hear the word cryptocurrency and they would be like, fuck that, you're a scammer. Like this, I'm literally getting comments on YouTube as recently as like a couple hours ago to that effect. And it's really, it's always men, and it's people that haven't actually listened to what I had to say. And then on the other side of that, the cryptocurrency sector is super hostile too, especially if I would speak up about the toxicity within that sector. So it was just like I was caught between a rock and a hard place, and I couldn't see how to share the message about seeds through that to connect with the people who would really, feel comforted that something like seeds exists and want to support and align themselves with something like that and use it, because you can use it to receive help yourself when you need it. So yeah, I just didn't know what to do. And it seemed like it was getting worse because suddenly all of this crypto money was being thrown at Trump. And I mean, even like Vitalik Buterin, I think it's actually pronounced Vitalik. Um, he just recently released a statement. I don't know if y'all saw. And so his thing is like he wrote a piece where he was just like, we shouldn't vote according to which candidate is quote unquote pro crypto. And mind you, the criticism that Biden was getting regarding like being quote unquote anti crypto was not founded really. I don't think I talk about this more in another video if you want to check it out. I can't remember which video it was off the top of my head, but I was speaking. I think it was in the Winklevoss video that I made. If you feel like watching it, yeah, it was just like the SEC was doing a really shitty job of monitoring the crypto sector. Gary Gensler runs the SEC, is the current chair. He was appointed by Biden in 2021. So it looked like, from a political standpoint, Biden didn't want to go against this person that he appointed, even though he was doing a pretty terrible job. Like, he wasn't protecting users from huge failures like the FTX failure, but he would fine Kim Kardashian for an Instagram post. So he like protected us from Kim Kardashian or whatever is the example that I use. But anyway, that looked like the extent of the politicization. I don't see any signs beyond some misguided energy from Elizabeth Warren, unfortunately, that like progressive progressive's too strong of a word, that like quote unquote the left is like anti-crypto. Okay. Um, but it was being cast that way and it was really discouraging. And then I mean, it's gotten so bad that, in case you missed this, so Vitalik gets like deified in the world of cryptocurrency. He's one of the co-founders of Ether. And he wrote this piece about how like people shouldn't only vote based on who they think the pro crypto candidate is, meaning don't just vote for Trump because you think he likes crypto. Trump was anti crypto in 2019. He tweeted about how he didn't like crypto when he was actually in office. And he was getting hate. Vitalik was getting hate. And that's like an extremely strong sign of the toxicity in the sector, I would say, because like he's been put on this pedestal and people were tweeting about how they were going to sell their ether because he made this reasoned remark. So, in conclusion, regarding like transcending the old system and how I eventually realized like, oh, this is the better way to speak about seeds so that people understand that this is what seeds is working to do. Very recently, in the midst of what seemed like worsening and worsening energy surrounding this, and like me getting more hate online for simply speaking about seeds, I realized that, oh, this has to happen in a spiritual sense. Like, I like a lot of folks I think that have followed me online. I'm really interested in and totally a believer that we're going through this process of ascension on earth right now. And we're getting away from these top down dysfunctional energies that, in many cases, had a lot of toxic masculine energy in them that have ruled these systems that our lives are governed by, like for our lifetimes and beyond. It looks like we're getting away from that. And so I suddenly realized that, oh, yeah, it's going to have to look as bad as possible. It's going to have to really, like, that energy is really going to have to come on the surface. It's going to have to be purged as sort of like the death knell of those dysfunctional systems. And I'm convinced that that's what's happening. And when I landed on that realization, I felt a lot better. And I also felt like I got clear on how to talk about seeds. And the way I've come to understand, this is like super, like I realized this in like the last week and a half, maybe, is that I can talk about the fact that the old systems are failing because that's, excuse me, that's increasingly obvious to more and more people, right? I mean, I think that's super clear. And I can talk about how Seeds is working to transcend those systems, and specifically, like I just made a video the other day about how like these are the elements of the dysfunction in the old system that I personally have seen, and this is how Seeds presents a solution to those specific problems. And I still got hate even on that video for the same reason that I described earlier, but it's getting closer, I think, to the right way to share this message to connect with the right people. So I guess I want to share this for anyone who is interested in what's up with seeds. And beyond that, I also want to share these thoughts. I hope that talking about some of this can offer some comfort. I know I'm not the only person out there who is feeling this way, just feeling this kind of despondence and just being like, wow, things are getting so much worse. Not like whatever, who cares about cryptocurrency, but just like generally, just it looked like things were just spiraling. And it felt like, I think for a lot of us, we as citizens didn't have any control. We didn't have a way to come together and sort of understand how to take action to address some of these problems in the exterior world. And while I trust that the energies are realigning and that it's better to shift our focus to higher vibrational things, like I believe seeds is, this was still going on, like in the news media and sort of like in the 3D world around us. So I'm hopeful that sharing these thoughts and kind of this realization that I've landed on may offer some hope to others. I think this is just kind of like that idea of it being the darkest before the dawn kind of thing. And I think we're coming through that. And I feel that I now better understand how to share about seeds so that that message can cut through a lot of this like bullshit and connect with the people who really resonate with it. Yeah. So I hope that helps somebody out there if anyone who feels that way is listening to this, whether now or in the future. As a last thing today, in like a quote unquote practical sense, because part of my thing is, if you don't know me already, just this idea of like, I think like seeds is about helping us transition into this higher vibratory world of the future where we're not trapped in this zero sum economic system that is depleting us and leaving us in scarcity energy. Seeds is about transcending that and, aligning with the energies of abundance that I think the world is shifting into. And as that's happening, we still exist within the current system. And I think it's okay to engage with the current system to receive like resources from it to help take care of yourself and to help provide resources for these systems of the future. And I think, again, that seeds is an example of that. So I do still want to talk about cryptocurrency trading, and I still like cryptocurrency trading. I think it's fun. And so I want to talk about that in a practical sense today because a huge event happened today. And that was the launch of the Ether ETF. Like live trading just started today in the United States this morning. And so, like, if we're looking at this news, I'm actually really stoked about this because we can see here, like, this says Ethereum market stagnation marks tepid trading day despite ETF launch. We can click on that article, I guess. I'm stoked about this because I didn't want it to take off right away. Okay, I should back up though. Like, if this is totally unfamiliar to anyone listening, the Ether ETF is essentially, so ETF stands for Exchange Traded Fund. It's sort of like a stock version. It's not precisely that, but it's sort of like a stock version of the cryptocurrency Ether, which is now trading on the stock market. And there are a variety of different versions of Ether ETFs that have been approved by the SEC. I think just a handful were approved today, but there are more that are likely to be approved in the coming days. So a Bitcoin ETF launched on, I think, January 11th of this year, and that drove Bitcoin prices up to all-time highs within 2 months. Um, it was breaking all-time highs on the way up. I think it broke its all-time highs 4 times before it hit its current all-time highs on like March 13th of this year. So the Bitcoin ETF was the clear driver of those price increases, and they were unprecedented because the Bitcoin halving, the most recent Bitcoin halving, which happens roughly 4 years, and it's an event at which the rewards that the Bitcoin ecosystem generates are cut in half, which is part of its deflationary design. That's always been a catalyst for driving the entire market up. Typically, we see all-time highs 12 to 18 months after a Bitcoin halving. And this was only the fourth Bitcoin halving ever. Bitcoin's like 15 years old, 15 and a half years old now. Okay, so It was unprecedented that Bitcoin was breaking its all-time highs in March when the halving wasn't until April. It happened April 19th, if I didn't already mention that. So this was clearly attributable to the fact that a Bitcoin ETF had launched. So it stands to reason that an Ether ETF, like just launched today in the United States, um, I should have mentioned that the Bitcoin ETF that launched in the United States then as well. There's some activity going on in other markets in the world as well. Like I know London has introduced products, ETNs, I think. I think there are ETFs trading in Hong Kong. Um, so I always want to be careful to not be too Amerocentric, but it's also true that activity in the American financial markets has like a wide reach globally, of course. So, it stands to reason that what happened today with the Ether ETF launch, could drive Ether's prices to all-time highs relatively soon. We'll see. But looking at this article that says that it was a tepid trading day, I'm actually super stoked about that. Like, let's look at the markets here. This is Gemini's stupid platform and they're awful. And I'm actually literally in in the midst of legal proceedings against them, which has been a long time coming because they took Ether from me. Hopefully I'll win this case and then I'll get, could be a couple $100,000 worth of Ether back from them that they took from me years ago. So I just pulled this up, I guess, to talk shit about them. It's not even talking shit though, if it's just talking about bad stuff they did though, is it? This is Kraken's platform. These are centralized trading platforms. So we only need to use them to trade fiat currency like the US dollar, the GBP, or the AUD, or the CAD for cryptocurrency. So here we can see this is the Ether ETH USD trading pair on this graph. And this isn't the Ether ETF, to be clear. This is like actual Ether, the cryptocurrency. And we can see that like nothing really happened, even though trading started this morning. The reason I'm stoked about that is because I am in the process of moving what for me will be a pretty big chunk of money from another asset into cryptocurrency. And I just found out earlier this week that it's not going to hit until like probably early next week. So first I was bummed because I wanted to have that ready to trade today. Like whenever it was just very recently announced that Ether ETF trade would actually start today. But then I found out that that money wasn't coming. So I was like, ah, bummer, maybe I'm going to miss this big move. But like a big move hasn't even happened. So that's interesting for one. And it's kind of good because it means that, hopefully I'll be able to benefit from this longer term. And again, like I said, when the Bitcoin ETF drove prices up so that Bitcoin hit new all-time highs, it was almost exactly 2 months later, a little over 2 months later. Yeah, Stephane says BTC went down 20% on that day. It didn't go up right away. I'm not deceiving anyone. What? I talked about how it took 2 months. So we're going to hide this user. See, this is an example of what happens when a woman talks about cryptocurrency. Dudes that don't know what they're talking about really love to chime in and say stuff that isn't founded in logic, and it's really fucking exhausting, let me tell you. Okay, so yes, Bitcoin took time to go up, and so I should have some time. And so I'm excited that this didn't go crazy today at all, like on this launch. Like if we look at this graph here, we can see that um, it hasn't even really, I think this was actually last night. Nope, it says this was early this morning. Okay, so it looks like there was a little bit of a spike right here because we can see, if you look at the time, you can see that like just below it says 23rd July 24, 8:15. So that's Pacific time, I believe, because I'm on the west coast of the US. And it hopped up early in the morning Pacific time. But if it was going to do anything, I would have assumed that that would have happened like East Coast time, so 3 hours ahead of me. So it did jump up here, which is kind of interesting that it happened then. And that's about all it did. It broke 3,500. It looks like it got up to about 35, 38 and came back down. So great. Like, fucking yeah. I was hopeful before I just recently concluded another course, how to build abundance in cryptocurrency trading course, which I taught live. And one thing I remember saying, like, as we were building our trading plans and I was sharing my trading plan with the group, was that I wanted to buy as much ether as I could if it dropped below 3,400. And if we zoom out, this is the day graph now. Check this out. There was this big spike on May 20th. This was a result of, it was this instance of, like, quote unquote, buying the rumor. Buy the rumor, sell the news is a phrase you'll hear in the world of trading. So this spike happened because people heard that the Ether ETF was going to get approved. And then I believe it was officially approved on May 23rd. So people were buying the rumor that that was going to happen. And then it did happen. But they didn't really sell the news for a bit. And then it just took too long to happen, I think, is what went down. It's my assessment of this graph. And then eventually, when it still hadn't gone live for that period of time, like, people sold it off over here. And then now, as of today, it's live. Like, what, 2 months later? Exactly 2 months later. That didn't happen with the Bitcoin ETF, to be clear, either. Things were lined up because the people who were introducing the Bitcoin ETF, they knew it was going to happen. So it was like, I think it got approved on January 10th, if I'm not mistaken, and then it was trading on January 11th. But people didn't think the Ether ETF was going to happen because the SEC had been hassling Ethereum as a cryptocurrency so much. They'd given they'd given that world a lot of legal trouble, and I think it wasn't merited, even though, like I said, I have no love for toxic energy in crypto, but I also think it's true that Gary Gensler and the SEC did a really shitty job. He just didn't do he wasn't good at his job. And part of that showed itself through the way he went after projects kind of incorrectly, I would say. So anyway, for that reason, it didn't look like it was going to get approved, and then it was. And then people weren't prepared to, like, actually launch trade because they didn't think that the Ether ETF was going to get approved. So yeah, it didn't happen for 2 more months until today. So I'm stoked that it's not doing that much so far. I'm hopeful that I can get money in next week, and maybe I can catch, like I was saying, like in my trading plan, I was saying, like, I hope I can buy below 3,400. And let's see if we can zoom this out a little bit. I don't use Kraken to actively trade super often, so I'm not as familiar with their interface, but all centralized trading interfaces are pretty similar. Yeah, okay, so this at least goes back to January of 2024. So when I was wanting to buy below 3,400, I think it was around June. I know we had a trading session, I think in our course, and I think it was mid-June, like the second week of June. So Ether was hanging out around here, like a little bit below 3,400 at that time. And then it was really awesome from my point of view when it dropped here. Like, it actually got back below 3,000, which was super exciting. But as ever, like, there's no such thing as the perfect trade, and you can waste a lot of energy, um, being bummed out that something didn't happen just the way you would have wanted to. Like, I really wish, for example, that it would have been great if this money that I'm moving to put into Ether, had been available to me and liquid, so that I could have caught this scoop when it dropped below 3,000. That's, like, even better than I was anticipating that the price might get. And it just didn't happen then. Um, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to catch a price that good again, but we'll see. Um, I'm just happy that, like I said, it's not going crazy yet. So hopefully I can catch some activity whenever that money hits, hopefully early next week, and still have a super profitable trade off of this. I'm thinking about this, y'all, just to explicitly say, like, okay, so for anyone who's not familiar with the sector and may not be aware of this, um, the Bitcoin halving typically kicks off the market cycles that we've previously seen. And like I said, all-time highs are typically reached 12 to 18 months after a Bitcoin halving has happened. Let me see if I can find this. Yeah, this is an article I've referenced in videos and in our course and stuff. There's a decent table down here, I think. Yeah. So here, if we're looking at halving dates history, okay. My face is covering some of this, isn't it? Let me like move my face. Okay. So if we're looking at this, we can see the first halving was November 28th, 2012. Okay. And the price at the date of that halving was $12.40. So then if we look at the bottom here, we can see the actual, like the halving cycles, and we have the other halving dates listed. The fourth halving, the most recent, this is listing the date as April 20th, 2024. Where I am on the west coast of the US, I think it actually happened on April 19th. So yeah, we can see like lowest price for these cycles has typically been two out of the four times at least. It looks like this is slightly changed. Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, it's because they updated the fourth halving cycle data since last time I looked at this. Okay, so like we can see like in the first halving cycle and the third halving cycle, the price, the lowest price for that cycle happened on the date of the halving itself. And again, the most recent halving was April 19th, April 20th of 2024. But this is so, okay, y'all, this is interesting. So it's actually dropped below that price in May of 2024. It came off after hitting those all-time highs in March, like I talked about in advance of the Bitcoin halving. And again, that seemed to happen quite clearly because the Bitcoin ETF had launched. So, that just makes me think that there's more opportunity here than I was previously realizing. Maybe I can catch the Ether, like maybe I can catch Ether at a lower price than I had previously thought that I could. I think I'm going to want to swing trade it more than I would typically swing trade Ether because like I like Ether and I typically just want to hold it longer term. But I'm going to want to more actively trade this, I think. Anyway, though, the point of this in showing this is to give you a sense of the way that like historically the Bitcoin halving has like kicked off these market movements more or less. And you can see here if we're looking at the highest price for those cycles, it's unique in this recent cycle because it's saying that the highest price, these are different numbers than what I've seen. Yeah, I don't think this is correct, actually. I know that Bitcoin got up to, oh, I think it's saying this because it hit all-time highs in March. Yeah, my bad, which was prior to the halving. Although it's listing that highest price in April, whatever. The idea here, though, is that if you look at the dates, typically, historically, prior to this recent halving, we were seeing all-time highs in the sector because Bitcoin is like this, harbinger is the wrong word because it has a negative connotation. It's what's the word? Barometer. Bitcoin is a barometer for what's going on in the cryptocurrency sector at large. Usually we can look to Bitcoin to see what the whole sector is doing, and it has a lot of influence over the sector, even though at this point I think it should be more differentiated. So yeah, if you check these dates out, like in the first cycle, the lowest price was in December 2012, and the highest price was 11 months later, the following November. Second halving cycle, August to the following December. So that's what, 16 months, I think. So that gives you a sense of how these cycles have typically gone. But things are unique this cycle, again, because the Bitcoin ETF was launched. And now we have this Ether ETF trading as well. So anyway, I'm thinking about things in terms of how I can catch this price as low as possible. And, I'm so excited about it. And I think it's going to be so substantial that I felt it was appropriate to move what for me is a big chunk of money from a different asset, like I said, so that I can put it into Ether. And I'm going to trade the cryptocurrency. I'm not going to trade the ETF because I want to actually own, I want to own Ether. Ether's a deflationary currency effectively now since the merge in September of 2022. So yeah, there's a finite supply and I want to hold on to it. So that's what I'm thinking. If anybody has anything they want to share or anything they'd like me to specifically talk about, I'm super happy to do that. Um, But yeah, that looks like that's what's up. It's just like a boring launch day for the Ether ETF. And that's cool because it means it gives us more opportunity to get involved later on. Yeah, so right now it's trading at 34.78 US dollars. And it's just like pretty dead, which is exciting. I wonder how much like this launching in July, late July, has to do with it. People just doing other things because it's the summertime. I'd wondered how, yeah, like, because that definitely played a part in how the markets would move. Like when I was a pro stock trader, things would be more dead in the summer. But cryptocurrency is different because it's not trading, exclusively during market hours. People are just trading on their computers whenever they feel like it. So I wondered if the summer would have some effect if it would slow trade down, especially as like cryptocurrency's gotten more institutionalized and more conventional. It's treated more as a conventional kind of financial asset now. But I didn't know to what extent that would be true. And it looks like it's true to perhaps a great extent, which is good to realize. All right, y'all. I think that's all I have to share. If you're, a person who has been frustrated by the legacy economic system and you're looking for alternatives, I want to invite you to consider being a part of Seeds. You can join our Discord. You can, check out other videos that I've made on this channel. So I talk about Seeds a lot. And if it resonates, you're very welcome to make a gift to someone in need through Seeds. I'll put the link in the chat. And it's also in the description. And when you help someone in need through Seeds, you'll receive Seeds cryptocurrency in thanks, which is a way to, first of all, that means that, it's net zero. It's neutral for you to make that gift. It doesn't cost you any money because you're getting an equal or greater value in Seeds and thanks. And yeah, if and when Seeds go up in market value, you can build wealth because you helped someone in need. And it's designed that way because our belief is that it's a mistake, that the old system completely compartmentalizes building wealth yourself and helping others. It's based on old ideas from like Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, which was published in 1776. It's based on that idea that self-interest is the only governing factor for all of human behavior. And we just know that that's not true. So many people are acting in ways all of the time that are about serving others. So we need an economic system that aligns with that essential part of human behavior. And that's what Seeds is designed to be. So if you want to check that out, it's always really appreciated when people make gifts, and you can do that at the link that I shared. And yeah, I guess that's all for today. Come say hi in the Discord if you want, and I'll catch you on here next time. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you very much. Okay, take care. Catch you later. Bye.